Hey, all, it's Kara, King of D&D Homebrew, talking today, as my title suggests, whether the players in an encounter in your world should run away, surrender, or die. By die, I mean it's a situation where they realize we are not going to survive this encounter. We are outnumbered. The rolls have gone against us. And this topic came up on my Discord server. There was people were talking back and forth about whether or not players ever surrender. And a lot of people were saying, no, the modern players, they don't even think about surrendering, right? Because they just think, well, if there's an encounter, we're supposed to just fight it. Or if we look at it initially and realize, oh my God, we have no chance, we just have to run away. But once we're involved in the battle, we just fight to the death. And there was some subtleties here about people saying, well, what is the opponent? Is the opponent clearly something that's just going to kill and eat the players, right? It's not going to show any mercy. It doesn't have it in its nature. Or is there a situation where there might be some way to negotiate a surrender such that you could survive and then possibly escape? But the thing that I added to this, instead of surrendering, if we assume that players do not like to surrender, they don't believe, they just think that the GM sets up a surrender situation and the players put down their arms and they just kill them, which I would say never do that, ever. If you're going to have the players surrender and they do that, don't just kill them. That is bad faith. It's just poor form, whatever. You should have that enemy have a reason for them to surrender. Otherwise, just have them fight to the death and go through that. Players don't want to die that way. Okay, that's me, and I'm just telling you, don't do that. So if they're really going to take a surrender, now you can have a situation where creatures are on their death's door and they're yelling out surrender as a last-ditch desperate move. But typically the players can see that they are in bad shape and just laugh that off, right? So you might have that, but if it's clear that they want them to surrender, they have a reason for it. And here's the other thing with the surrender. If the players don't want to surrender, that's okay, because you can capture them. If the monsters have them and it's clear they're going to win, they can begin using non-lethal attacks, knock them out, and capture them. Although, again, it should be reasonable and they have a reason to capture the players, because you can get into a situation where it doesn't make sense. Now, this gets into the second reason that I'm thinking about this. I had a situation in the current Pathfinder campaign that I'm running as a GM where my players ran into a situation where it looked like several were going to die. And it had all the hallmarks of all these things with, whether you're running away, surrendering, or just accepting your death because of the nature of the monsters they were fighting. So to recap, the players were going to explore this ancient temple that they suspected this ancient race of giants I have in my world had been long just abandoned and just sort of nothing. And suddenly things were happening there, strange events. Sure enough, they go there and things had been sacrificed, various creatures on the top. This temple has long ago been blown away. There was just a platform and a hole to a couple chambers. But there were all sorts of fresh kills, ritualistic kills, including 3 ogres that were propped up on these sticks or whatever, like a platform that kind of propped them, almost vertically. And then they had been their hearts ripped out, right? Very ritualistic. And it looked like it had happened very recently, these 3 ogres. So the players go down there, they're investigating, and they run into an opponent. They do all sorts of stuff, and it's, again, like these things, a long story, 2 sessions of running. But in the end, they ran into these Morlocks, and there were too many Morlocks for them to fight that had found a way through from the Underdark into this temple. Again, a long story. So as they're leaving, they lock out the Morlocks, but the Morlocks are trying to figure out a way through this door, and they come up and they look on the platform. The way the stairway worked, it just kind of came up to a flat area, and you could sort of peek out over the what was the floor, and they saw across at the other end of the temple 3 live ogres examining the body of the murdered ogres. What do? You've got Morlocks underneath trying to break out, and you got these 3 ogres. And the players are like 3rd level. There's 4 of them because one person was missing. So 4 characters. So what they decided to do is try to sneak across. So they went and they snuck across this thing, and they were going to jump off. This building was built on a platform, and it was about 20 feet high, and they were willing to jump off and take what damage they could take. And one of the players failed totally miserably. I don't know if it was a critical fail or whatever, failed the stealth. And the ogre saw them and came at them. Okay. In this situation, 3 ogres against these 4 third-level characters in a Pathfinder setting, that's a tough battle. But what happened was the Morlocks burst through, because I had been rolling to see if they got through. So they flooded down. The 2 ogres saw them, and that's the people that had sacrificed their guys. So 2 of the ogres went down to take on the Morlocks, and the other one continued to chase the player. So now you got 1 ogre against 4 characters. What happened, though, was 2 of the characters, this was early on when they were running in my campaign, and they thought to themselves, KR's world's deadly. He'll kill you. He'll set up. It's not the heroic fantasy where we always win, right? Because that's a reason that players will fight to the death, because they assume we should always win. We don't get killed. So they saw this, and 2 of them ran away. And then the third was a human cleric, and then you had a dwarf. Well, the dwarf's movement, he's fully armored, it's slowing him down. His movement's like 20. The ogres are going to catch him. He can't run away. And the cleric, one of his anathemas as a cleric was to desert an ally in need. So he said, I got to stay. So there's 2 of these guys. And by the way, they'd been injured and stuff in this thing. They used a lot of spells. So they're going to fight this ogre. And they just thought, we're dead. And I thought that too. I did think this is going to be nasty. So what do you do as a GM? The other guys are just running away, and they just keep going. They just said, we would just run away. They were trying to play their characters. We just keep going. Well, there's a couple things. Ogres are notorious for eating people, right? Cannibalism, or, just they eat humanoids. Now, in the rules, it says, it has a whole thing about when people are captured by ogres, that sometimes, first of all, it can be a horrific experience, and you get eaten and tortured and all this, accidentally killed as they're toying with you and stuff. But it also says that you can sometimes fool them with promises of treasure and whatnot. So ogres don't necessarily mean that if you get captured by them, you're going to get eaten. But the players were just going, well, they didn't care. And again, they're not going to surrender to them. No way. They're going to fight to the death because they thought they're just going to eat us. And the ogres weren't asking. The ogre wasn't asking for their surrender. He was just fighting, right? But I could have stepped in and had him for some reason, knock them out or whatever and capture them. What happened was we had this super deadly battle in which the player characters had a couple of critical hit situations, and they managed to just barely beat this ogre. But they did. But it was hit or miss. I did not go the capture route. I just thought, for a couple of reasons. And this relates to my point about capturing the players. It's not making a mistake. If you've warned the players, I showed 3 freshly killed ogres on the top of this temple. Now, you could say, oh, the other ogres just ran off and they'll never come back. But if you did see ogres there inspecting the bodies of their compatriots, are you surprised? So it isn't like I just had a random encounter with ogres. I had a warning there. I didn't show them in the distance or anything, but I did show these freshly killed ogres. Secondly was the players were down with these Morlocks, and the Morlocks did push them out. They ran away from the Morlocks. They realized we can't beat these. They were very smart. They didn't just say, oh, KR, we'll just fight to the death. He won't kill us. Oh, yes, I will if you fight something that's overwhelming. But you can get away from them. They shut this door, and the Morlocks, it was a magically held door. It's another long story, but they knew they could keep it closed long enough for them to get away, but then they see the ogres. But I also played in the fact that the ogres were really angry at the Morlocks and wanted to get them. So several of them slipped away. But if you surprise the players, or if they're playing really well and suddenly the battle goes away, you can manufacture a reason for monsters to capture players. Because otherwise, in those kind of situations, you're going to have a lot of TPKs. If you're not going to either set up encounters that could be deadly, and you're not going to fudge rolls, and you're just going to play it straight up, you're going to have TPKs because the players don't want to surrender. You can ask to surrender, but the players typically won't. So what you've got to do is think about a reason that the ogres would capture, or the ogre in this situation, capture the players. Let them live. long enough for the players to possibly figure out another way out of this. And there's a number of reasons here. Maybe they wanted to find out what information this dwarf and this human had about these Morlocks and this temple and what was going on. Although, again, ogres are so stupid, whatever. But you can also have the old ogre chieftain, right? Who has said to these ogres, if you, first of all, go there and check these bodies out, or what happened to these other people, the 3 that they sent out who were killed. And then if you find anyone, capture them and bring them back to me, because I will interrogate them. And then we'll torture them and eat them, right? But that gives you that gives the ogre and his 2 compatriots a reason to capture the players and take them back. The other thing is you've got 2 players out there. Presumably they're going to stop and maybe come back. Although they said, we're going because it's rounds. We're just running. But once they get captured, it turns into turns, and then the other players might be able to do something. So you're thinking, is there a reason this creature would capture these players and take them? And I think this fills in the gap on the surrender factor, that players do not like to surrender. The other thing that I would say about surrendering is you can set up circumstances where it's clear that maybe things have surrendered. So if they come across these groups of bandits and whatnot, and they've got people captured, either in cages or pens or something like that, where it's clear they're capturing, if they say surrender, they're not going to kill you necessarily. You can also have, if you have sense motive things in your game where people can sense that they are being truthful. If they say, lay down your arms and we won't kill you, that they're being truthful, and the players can see they're going to die, right? Again, what happens is if they want them to surrender, they can just as easily capture them. So again, the surrender option, if you've got non-lethal type attacks in your game, you can just have them captured. But again, they might ask to surrender just because they don't want to take any more damage. The battle's done. You've lost. Why keep fighting? And why fight to the death? But this relates to kind of an overview of this situation, the runaway, surrender / capture or die, which is you don't want to feel like, the players don't want to feel like they're being railroaded into being captured, right? If they see an overwhelming force, they should have some way of running away, right? Of escaping, if they choose. Just having an army burst all around them, well, how did they sneak up on us? If there's, they would make noise. There would be evidence of this. So you want to make sure you're not setting up a situation where, I just want to get you guys captured, because then you're going to go and run through this whole storyline because my narrative is really cool. Don't do that. You always want to have encounters, I feel, that if you're not going to run away, if it's clear that it's overwhelming and you better run away, if they do that, then they can get captured or whatever, however you want to do it, or get a TPK, or have some people run away and some people die, which is what I thought was going to happen here. Because I didn't have anything. He wanted revenge on these players, and he was going to kill them. The other thing is, if you're going to set this up, especially if you're improving it, have an idea, a general idea of what's going to happen after the surrender. They're going to tie them up. They're going to take all their stuff. Are they smart enough to know about that? Are they going to make a fire and just get ready to roast these characters right there? Hey, come on, guys, the ogres, we're going to get some fresh meat. They captured them. But they like to have cooked people, again. And the players are there, and now they have an opportunity to, because do they know to take away their stuff? Strip them. They always have tricky things, these humans, that kind of thing. And then the other players having an opportunity to do that. So have an idea of what these creatures would do when they captured you. Tie you up, put you on a stick and take you to the main commander, who's asked, any humanoids you capture, bring to me. And then the other players can track them down, and we've got this narrative going. But have an idea of what that really means. And not just, as I said, no to, you surrendered, you all get killed. That's no good. And then finally, telegraph the stakes here. Just like you telegraph, that's a deadly force right there. You better be careful. Telegraph the stakes of the battle in terms of what surrender means as opposed to fighting on. It's clear they don't seem hurt. They don't seem affected. They've got resistances or tons of hit points or whatever. So, and they're fast. You can't outrun them. You try to run. So what are you going to do? Right? Telegraph that. And again, they're probably not. Players today don't surrender. Back in the day, we didn't really surrender that. Who wants to surrender with my heroic, alter ego in this game? I give up. You don't want to do it, right? So I get that. But you want to show the players, this is nasty. And again, the capturing should make sense. I didn't have anything set up when I thought of this thing, I didn't have a ogre chieftain. I didn't have, any reason. I could have done that, but I was sort of like, once the other guys ran away and abandoned their, because 4 of them might have been able to take on the one ogre, but they ran away. And so I thought, well, okay, you've abandoned your players, your fellows here. That's kind of intense. So I just rolled it out and they won, but man, was it close. And of course it was very exciting. And that's what you're after. So that kind of, I think you can take the modern thing. If you don't want to have either the players always win, boring. You're going to have TPKs. You're going to have the whole party killed if they can't run away and they just fight to the death. Or are you always setting it up such that they can get away? Because you do have those battles, even if you thought they were going to go good, that go the wrong way. The dice start to become a problem. You start to get condition spirals as in Pathfinder or other systems. So hopefully that was helpful to you. And of course, a shout out to my Patreon supporters. I did a thing on once-a-year events in my latest entry, the PDF and video. Lots more to go. Really appreciate your support. Hey, and if you like the channel, give a like, give a comment. Tell me what do your groups do? Do they ever surrender? Do you have them captured? I'd love to hear it. And of course, most importantly, keep playing an RPG game, whichever one you choose, and tell somebody else about it.